Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. So the weather's starting to get cold now and we've still got vegetables growing in our greenhouse. And I want to give my greenhouse a little bit of heat to keep it frost free and keep it warm over the winter. And normally what I do is I use my compost heating system, but this time I'm going to try and recycle some waste. So I went down to my butcher's and I picked up a load of fat. Now I'm going to extract the oil from this fat and I'm going to make a fat burning candle that'll heat my greenhouse all the way through winter. So the first things first is he's giving me this hard lumps of fat. Now I need to get the oil out of that. It's really simple to do. So as soon as just get a pot on the heat, and all it's a case of doing is taking these chunks of fat and placing the chunks of fat inside the pot. And this heating process will let the oil come out. So look, all this fat, my butcher would have just thrown this all away. He would have had to pay to dispose of it. Would have either gone to landfill or it would have gone for some other useless process. But we can make use of it. It doesn't matter how you stack it, just get it all in. There's bits of meat left on here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean that bit of meat and I'm going to feed it to the stray cats that come around. Because I just want the pure fat. So the stray cats, they do a great job for me. I mean, one of the ways I control rats in the garden is by encouraging stray cats to come over. And this is one of the ways that I do it with whenever they come round, they know they're going to get a feed from me. So I'm going to leave that on a really low heat for it to all just melt down and it'll turn into a nice pile of oil for me. Once I've got that, we'll take you through the next steps. So I've boiled my fat and my mum moved it from the big pot that it was in into this little saucepan, and we've had it set. And she poured it into here and it's set in here. Now, in order to get this into my candle pot, I'm gonna just have to heat it up a little bit. So I'm just gonna gently warm it. Once that's warmed through and it's turned into liquid again, I'll get it into my mould to make my candle. So just keep that on a gentle heat. But while I'm doing that, let's make the wick. The thing that I'm going to use to make my wick is I've got this cotton thread and I'm just going to use this. So take a nice long stretch of it. It's way longer than what I need it to be. So I'm just going to fold it back on itself and make a nice thick wick. I didn't initially make one out of a cotton sari, but I've lost that wick that I made. So there, that'll do it. And I'm just going to twist it. So it's nice and tight. Now that my fat's starting to melt, I'm just going to dip my wick into the fat. And I've got my wick ready. I'm going to take my wick and I'm going to just leave it somewhere to dry outside. Because it is fat, leaving it outside for a few minutes will get it hard and enough to be used as a wick. So I'm just going to leave it on the windowsill here. I'll come back and get it in a few minutes. You could already see it forming a crust on my fingers again. But let's go back to the candle. Fat has almost melted down. Now this is an experimental process, so let's see how it works. And I'm using a tin can because my mum was scared that if I used a glass jar, I might crack the glass jar because of the heat. So I'll take her advice on that. I'll just give it another sift through and get rid of any bits of that is quite warm. Let me find a cloth to hold it with. I'll take this outside to cool and I'll get my wick set in place as well. And I've got my wick is ready. Look, it's solid now. So I'm just going to bend that in place. So I've got a nice big thick lump at the bottom. And I'm just going to drop it in. Well, it's long enough to fold again actually. So let's give it another. It's long enough to fold again. My wife's just had this brilliant idea of making sure we can get that wick to set at the bottom. It involves an old nail. She's just going to hook that nail. I mean, I should have watched some candle makers as to how they get the wick to stay at the bottom, and that might have helped me. And that might have actually helped me. But I'm not a professional candle maker. It's quite scented. I'm going to just leave that to set somewhere. And then we'll be ready to rock and roll tonight when I get this in place.